Thank you all for coming out on such a stormy winter day. Maybe some more people will drift in, but there's another meeting tomorrow from 2 to 4, I understand, as well. So maybe some people will come out at that time. We're here today to discuss the survey that Council engaged Dan Brandt to do on what were the people's views on what should happen to the Culberson land. 293.4 acres of land, that the partial settlement land, as well as the financial compensation, something around 27 million. So Dan Brandt is our consultant, and he will explain to you his survey and his findings. So let's all welcome Dan to our meeting. Thank you very much. Dan, the meeting's yours.
Can we turn the lights off in the front so you can see better? This would be a movie. Get a popcorn. Okay, we're just waiting for a couple of people to come in there. Okay, thank you. I don't know whether this is on or not. Okay, this is going to be a summary of the report that we did for the Culberson Tract partial settlement on the undertaking the community consultation. What we're going to do, go through this, and I'm going to give a high-level review of the partial settlement, some of the background. We'll talk about the consultation process that we went through, and then we'll talk about the findings. I'll show you some of the, again, not all of the detailed findings. I think our report is 70 pages long. So rather than go through 70 pages, I'm just going to go through the highlights. And you're welcome to ask questions about the details. I do have a copy of the report here, and I can talk to it or on what we can do. Now, one thing that I should mention to you, I should make clear to you, we're reporting on what we heard. Okay, we're not making anything up. What we heard and what was put in the survey, we're reporting on that, and that's what we are doing here today. We're also going to, in the terms of the findings, we're going to tell you what the members said about the money in both the survey and the focus groups and the outreach that we, the kind of outreach that we did have. And we also asked about the use of the land, and we'll talk about what we heard on that as well. So the highlights of the settlement. Okay, the highlights of the settlement process itself was the original land grant, and this everybody may well know all of this, but we'll just run through it very quickly. The original land grant was known as the Simcoe deed, signed in 1793, and John Culbertson obtained a fee simple deed from the British government for 923.4 acres out of the original grant. In 1995, Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte submitted a land claim with the federal government and Ontario. The negotiations were entered into for a portion of this land, 299.43 acres, without prejudice against the remaining acreage. And part of the policy of the federal government is that they will not, land is not available, and unless there is a willing seller and a willing buyer. And the reason that it's 299 acres here is that Kimmett, who had the portion of land that we're talking about, was a willing seller, and so that became part of the negotiated settlement. In September 2021, saw a successful vote by membership to ratify the partial settlement agreement. The agreement saw $30,974,864 from the federal government, $300,000 from the province, plus the 299.43 acres of land to be reinstated as Mohawk land. And the Mohawk Council agreed then to consult the membership on the best use of available money, which after the expenses turned out to be around $27 million as the net compensation, and then the best use of the land, which was the 299.43 acres. Now, to give a little bit of background as well, the total MBQ population as of December 31st, 2023 was on reserve 2,102 and off reserve 9,003, with a total membership population of 11,105. Okay, this comes into play as we get into the project here. As we went through and we received information on the from the survey, and we asked about age, we asked about age categories, those things. The one thing that became apparent through this and through the almost through the entire questions and through everything, when you look at the first, I should have a pointer, the on-reserve, off-reserve population, you can see that they're pretty much equal. The population, the breakdown between the dark blue is men, the green are women, and so it shows off-reserve, on-reserve, what that population breakdown is. The Tyendinaga population pyramid is, now that's only for people on the territory here. And the reason it's only on the territory is that we cannot get information of off-reserve population in their age categories. The first one is taken from the Census Canada information, and the second one is taken again from Census Canada information, but it breaks it down. But for Census Canada, they only provide the information on the reserve. They don't. They ask people if you're First Nations, but they don't ask. They don't get the same kind of information if you're not on the territory. What this shows is where the majority of population is. The small numbers on the side here show the difference in the age categories. The age category that is the most really goes from the age 50 to 60, and that bubble goes up. When demographers use these pyramids, They show what show where the population, the majority of population are. And for Tyendinaga in 2023, this is where it shows that population is between the ages of 50 and 60. The if we, and I think it's in our report as well, we showed a population of the overall First Nations population, and it shows that is the largest areas are below the age of 25, and so that's normal across the First Nations in Indian country, all across the country. Our population is aged a little bit different. There again, keep that in mind because it comes into play a little bit later. Now, the consultation process that we went through, the first step was a mail-out letter that was sent to the membership announcing the consultation process. And over 7,000 letters were mailed by the administration office to the members. And we've been unable to find the number of letters that were returned. That will make a difference in terms of the percentage of how many people, what the percentage was that people that responded to the survey. But at the moment, well, I'll get into that I think in the next slide. We don't know how many letters were returned. We don't have that exact number, but we're still trying to find that out. And the reason that those letters come back is because people have changed their address. They haven't informed the band about their new address, those kinds of things. So and there's a number of reasons, but if the band doesn't have the current addresses, then there's no way to contact them, and that's one of the issues there. We also set up an email address and a phone number where people could call and receive information and ask for any information. And in the original mail-out letter, the chief put my phone number on that mail list, and I got a lot of phone calls. So, Chief, I'm going to send you the bill for that. No, the people did call, and they were asking about it, and I got calls from all over the country. The people were asking about what's this about. Just anecdotally, most of the people who called were recent people who had recently got their membership, and they didn't know anything about this, and they wanted to know what this was all about. What do I have to do? That was a common question. What do I have to do? Well, you don't have to do anything. You just have to answer the survey and you know, whatever is asked of you in the letters that are coming out. In the consultation process, again, the step 2 was an electronic survey that asked a number of questions and provided some options. In the proposal, we also had a major company, Deloitte, which is one of the biggest audit and management companies in Canada. We worked with them on the development and the implementation of the survey itself. And the reason that we did that is so that because all of our team is from Tyendinaga, and we wanted to make sure that there was no bias that we were putting into the questions. So we worked with Deloitte on that. And we also wanted to use Deloitte because they're the ones that manage the payouts for water and child welfare, and they look after a lot of activity. I still can't hear you. Those. Yeah, the Indian day school settlement as well. They apparently did not do the residential school settlement. So they have been working with, and we've worked with them on a couple of projects as well. So with the electronic survey, that was mailed out as well. And there was a line that you could put in the computer. I hope most of you did it. There were 1,142 starts to the survey. There were 906 that completed the survey. And on the information that we had available, there were hard copies that were available at the administration office, and people could also be requested, if they called in, to have those mailed, have a copy of the survey mailed to them. 68 surveys were completed from the hard copies that were taken out of the administration office, and 12 were mailed out. So people did access that, and they took it out and they completed, and it became part of that 906. The members, we undertook some focus groups. We advertised some focus groups, and members were invited to participate in those focus groups, which are all held at the library. And the flyers were put into, to advertise focus groups, were put into the on-reserve members' mailboxes. And it went around to everybody on the territory should have received a flyer in the advertising when those, when the days were and all that. So 9 different focus group times were offered. In total, there were 65 people that attended those 9 different focus groups. We also held what we called town hall, virtual town halls. We were intending to have focus groups in different locations where there were a number of people, like Toronto, Hamilton, Ottawa, Syracuse, whatever. And we we asked people if they would like to attend that, and we put that in the survey. When we got the surveys back, they were scattered. They were not very there were not groupings, logical groupings that we could contact people or set up some kind of a process to say we're going to have a focus group in downtown Toronto, so at such and such a time. So what we shifted that to advertise a virtual town hall, and so we could have like a focus group in the town hall. We set that up for 3 different days, and those were offered, and 38 people attended those. We had people from one end of the country to the other attend those as well. We had people from Nova Scotia, we had people from Vancouver, and every place in between. So that worked out fairly well, but we could have used like a lot more. A letter was sent out to those people, to all the membership again, advertising the virtual town halls. So that consultation process, we attempted to reach as many people as we could through the letters. It was put on the MBQ website, it was put on social media, and we also found that there were some members that put the advertising on their own social media as well. So the word got around, and that we were doing this. Now the age of the respondents, as we look back on that one slide about the different ages, when we look at the first small number, the age is between 12 and 18, and it goes up. The highest one is 65 plus, and the percentage, when you look at, you can see those numbers on top. The numbers on top is the percentage of people who that fit into that category. So we see that between the ages of 55 in this one and 65 plus, we've got 45.5 percent of the people who responded to the survey were in that category. So this is this shows that the majority of people who were answering were in the higher age category. Now, we broke that down to see if there was a difference between on and off reserve. And the on reserve are in the blue and the off reserve are in the green. Does it show up blue and green there? Yeah. And that, and again, one of the things that struck me as I was looking at this information as it came in is how similar it was, how similar they are between the age categories. Like they're almost the same all the way through. I thought originally, and this is again one of the biases that we were looking at, or I'm trying to keep out of the analysis, was my intention or my thought was that we would get a lot different answers between the off reserve and the on reserve. Well, throughout the whole thing, we didn't. They're almost identical, and that's the end. I don't know what happened. Okay. No, the age difference and the differences between on and off were strikingly similar, and frankly, that surprised me. I thought there would be a bit of a difference, and there are minor differences, but not a lot. And so that's one thing that we have to keep in mind as well. The employment characteristics of the membership, we asked people what they, about their employment. Majority as well, 50%, almost 50, rounding off 50%, were employed full-time. And when we look at the next largest one was the retired section, and that again is almost 50%. So, and then the other ones, employed full-time, starting at the top, employed full-time, employed part-time, employed seasonally, unemployed temporarily, unemployed permanently, retired, and prefer not to respond, PNTR. So it shows that there is a good amount of employment activity, and more so at the unemployed permanently ranges only around 3% of the memberships who asked. Now, at the beginning, I said it was important to look at how many people respond so you get a percentage of the response rate. When we get that, normal response rate for surveys that go out, that are mail-out surveys, is usually around 5%. Anywhere between 5 and 20% is considered to be a decent survey. With the amount of people that responded and completed the survey and the numbers of letters that were mailed out, that's around 11%. So we're in statistical analysis that says that this is a good sample of the responses that you get. In other words, if we had 100% of the people responding, the answers wouldn't be terribly different than what they are showing here. And that's just called statistical sampling. Okay, what we heard and received from the data, and the data was primarily in the surveys. We asked, the first question we asked was of note was, what's the best use of the settlement money? We outlined that it was around $27 million. And the predominant response that came back in the survey was that who is in favor of 100% distribution equally to the membership. We set it out so that there were number 1 was you strongly agree that it should be distributed, to number 6 that says we strongly disagree. And the strongly agree and the agreed, which is items number 1 and 2, ends up to 61%, said voted in favor of 100% distribution equally to the membership. And what is of note as well is that the number 6, 20% strongly disagreed with the with 100% distribution. So it is not, there's nothing absolute or definite about that, except in the survey it is saying 100% should distribution. We ask about partial distribution as well, and strongly agree was number 1 and number 2 combined comes out to 49.6%. So there was a little bit of a mix there. Now, when we went into the focus groups and we were talking to individuals, the majority of individuals, not all, but the majority of individuals said almost the opposite, that there should be a lot of investment rather than distribution. When we look at the distribution, we do the math, it works out to around $2,000 when you look at the membership, if you're going to distribute it equally among the membership. And it also creates issues with minors, of allocating money to minors, where you have to put it into a trust fund and all of that kind of thing. So we went on further to provide options for using the money. The options that we asked about was 100% allocation based on economic need. And I don't know whether you can see that well enough or not. Number 1 at the left-hand side is the strongly agree. Number 6 at the right-hand side of the first graph is a strongly disagree. And we can see that people, maybe, because they voted in the middle, basically there. We asked about, the second graph is the application process, much like when you apply for the day school settlement or the water settlement, you have to fill in an application and make an application for a portion of that money. And again, it registered around number 4, so not a very strong sense that was that people were that would like to use that one. The funds used to support member services, programming run by the band, a large percentage in number 5 and 6. That wasn't very popular at all. And the last one, the investment of 100% of the claim used for future use, talking about the 7th generation approach. And it was pretty steady all the way across until we completely disagree with that concept, and both on reserve and off reserve voted highest number 6 on that one. We ask about investing, just using the money for to make something that you could have future use. It would grow the money, in other words. I'm sorry. Oh, not. Yeah, no, the majority said no. That was their least popular, thing that they wanted it to do. Um, when we asked again about in terms of, okay, make an assumption here. If you're going to use it for programming, if the band is going to use it for anything in any kind of program or the sector, what should the money be used for? Economic areas were second. The percentage, about 20% of the off reserve, almost about 18% of the on reserve said economic. The majority said health. And what is interesting in this one is that the no replies, we're just not going to say. We just don't have an opinion. Are the light blue ones, and the light blue ones are prominent in almost every response on this question. But the ones who did respond, health was the major issue. How do you? We should put money into the health sector. We again, part of the questions, what you do in surveys, you ask a question in one area, and then you ask a similar question in another area to see if there's a consistency there. And we asked, should the Mohawk Council take a short-term or long-term view for the use of the settlement monies on the territory? You can see the blue is on the territory. 150 people responded, saying it should be short term, and off territory. Off territory, it's a little over 300 people, and again, you can see the no reply. There were quite a number that's almost none. So again, these, when you look at the off reserve and the on reserve, again, those numbers are fairly similar, relatively similar. The off reserve, a little bit more that voted for short term. In other words, what they were saying is that distribute the money. And that's to say we're looking for consistency across the survey to make sure that they're consistent when you answer. And that's one of the things in survey development that you do is put questions that you can make a comparison among the answers. So what we heard in the focus groups and the virtual town hall meetings, the options for the use of the land, the overall question thing that we heard the most was used for housing. Housing became the major issue. In the people who were in the virtual were basically the ones off the territory, and a lot of them were looking for land. There was one, I should have put it in this survey, there was one question we asked, how many people of the 9,000 that were living off the territory, if they had an intention of moving back to the res. And 30% said no, flat out no intention of moving back. Flip side of that, 70% have some intention. So 70% of 9,000, 6,000 people. So that's a significant issue. And a lot of them were talking about home ownership, about how do we gain a home on the territory. A lot of them talked about the affordability of land and housing. It talked about the necessity for affordable housing. And they wanted to, and in terms of housing, they looked at it as well as an investment, that putting money into their home would be an investment. There was probably, as I say, a more passionate response about agriculture. For the few who talked about it, They were more passionate than anything, and there is an apple orchard that was planted by. It's historic. It's an old apple orchard, and it needs to be maintained. It's been not maintained for a long time, and so they talked about that. There was also some discussion, not a huge amount, but some discussion about the entire acreage used for food sovereignty, use it for a farm, grow food for the community, that kind of thing, and that was worth noting as well. In terms of service facilities, people talked about a convenience store, talked about light or small commercial. That talked about an options for a variety of business growth, but all small business. People talked about go back to this one. Some of the things that people. Just looking to see if I covered it in another area here. People talked about not setting it up. They don't want it to look like Highway 49. No gas stations, no pot shops, no cigarette stores. That came out a number of times in the discussions. That that's what was said in the focus groups. Okay, so they looked at, as I say, having conveniences there, light or small commercial, sort of bead shops, clothing stores, things like that. And so that was, in terms of the services, there was, again, no one specific. The most specific things that people talked about were housing. And when they talked about housing, it was not one specific thing. Some people talked about having land to build a house, so accessing capital to build their own home. They talked about purchasing the land and being able to purchase it from the council, from the band. They also, a number of people talked about just affordable housing, just the rent that was affordable and having a place to live. The most often heard comments was that we need to remember future generations. And as you say, in the focus group focus was a bit different. It was looking at long-term rather than what was shown in the survey as short-term. People said investing is a must, either through services provided, economic endeavors, whatever. Some people said, why don't we just build a casino there and make all kinds of money? There was, as I said, passionate response to the use of the land for food sovereignty, and multi-use of the land mentioned was often through that 299 acres of having a mixed use, like homes for sale, land for sale, so people could build their own apartments, rental properties, small commercial businesses, some agriculture, putting a whole mix of activities on that land. There was also some discussion about the necessity to plan and do more technical work to make sure that the best possible decisions. Talked about the necessity of seeing what the land could do, getting soil tests, all those kinds of things, determining the cost of infrastructure and the physical attributes of the land or the soil that can be used for. As far as I know, it has always been used for agricultural purposes, and hay has been the most often used crop that has been there. Most often heard comments again, this is from the this is basically from the focus groups and the virtual town halls. Access to land. Land to build a home is either not available or too expensive. Land prices have gone up on the territory a lot, and there were a number of people that stated this, not in these specific words, but the same thing. They said land is being hoarded by too few, which is driving the cost up, and regulations need to be put into place. There were a number of people that talked about providing land ownership for first-time owners was a major concern. And people talked about having access to land, the people who did not have any, and land to purchase on the territory is really scarce, or the land that is available is very expensive. So they wanted to, again, be able to purchase, be able to purchase land in order to build a house. In terms of housing, as I mentioned, by far the most common issue was the lack of housing. That people said, yeah, we would like to move, but we can't find housing. There's no place to go. We can't buy land. It's too expensive. So where do we go? Membership was looking for more options to rent or own and support for all the members. And a lot of the members wanted availability for mortgage, rent geared income, subsidized housing. And that goes back again to the mixed use. So in the report, our recommendations to council, as we put in the report, would be to, because of what we heard in the survey and what we heard in the focus groups, that one of the recommendations would be to distribute some of the money and invest the remainder, so there can be further distributions. If there is money invested and there is money made on that investments, then there will be money for further distributions as well. Second recommendation was to develop a multi-use plan for the use of the land in question. Land acquisition for members, affordable housing, light commercial. Third recommendation, determine the infrastructure requirements. Whether there is a capacity to extend the water and sewers lines from the town out into that area, that needs to be determined. The fourth policy that we talked about, a recommendation, was to develop a policy for land use specific for the Culbertson tract, and with a priority for first-time homeowners, and having an equitable purchase of the land, making it available for people who want to move back or move home, and be able to purchase land in order to build their own home. Now, one of the comments that I heard at one point was, if we did that, if you started out in a sort of a phased process, you could sell the property, the land in land units, and then use that to build homes for rental and for affordable housing. So you could really do it all, but it would take place over time. That was one of the recommendations that we heard as well. So with that is again a high level summary of what the whole consultation process is, and what we heard. Questions? And I'm not sure I would have the answer, but questions? I'm sorry. I don't know whether I have it on here or not. It is. Do you know the boundary in Deserato, the boundary line, the town line? As soon as you come up to the top of the hill, you go through the town of Deserato, and you turn left and you go up to the top of the hill. Starts there, and goes back to basically the slash road where the slash road goes, and it's about 200 feet in. 200 feet in. On the left side of the road going north.
Again, in the package that was sent out, there's a map in there that shows all that.
Yeah. In the package that was sent out, there is a map, and there's also a QR code that you can click on. Is the QR code? It has the brochure, doesn't it? There is a link in one of the letters that was sent out. There's a link that shows a video of that land in question. Okay.
Responding about the letters that were supposed to be mailed out. We didn't get the letter in the mail, and I did call the band office on the hard copy, and they weren't available. I put our names down on the list so we could receive one, and still had no response. Nor did they offer to remail the original paper in the mail. So there is 3 people that I can say right now that have not had any of that conversation brought to them by paper to their homes. We have a son that lives in Barry Bay. He was down here, and he got to speak to the chief briefly, and he didn't get a letter. He was just getting verbal from me, telling him what was going to happen here. And unfortunately, Dennis has to hooter back out of here. The snow is coming, and he lives up in Barry's Bay. So we're listening on his behalf today, right? The land claim picture was done appropriately by a surveyor, and it shows that there's use. There was a gravel pit working there, and it was just stopped. And it's feasible to make the river a lot of money to pursue more development for housing in many, whether it would be a nice retirement home or handicap hospital for the elderly. Like, there's lots of resources that could be motivated from that part of that boundary road that would allocate some more movement and possibly benefit people that do want to own their first home. Because the houses are expensive, no doubt. They're expensive anywhere and everywhere. But I mean, in order, when there's availability to actually produce work, jobs, and your own ownership, then people will come and deal with that. But a lot of people just didn't get the letter.
One of the your first issue on the letters. The letters were all like I have my own business, which is a consulting business, and we were contracted. We won a contract to undertake this project, and so we had, my business, we had no involvement in the letters going out. That's all.
I understand that.
And
too, because I mean, I'm not totally literate, but I mean, I'm not far off, right? So just throwing a letter out there is not doing the trick.
And that's why we had phone number for you to phone and ask for information. There was a phone number that specifically made for that.
And we still didn't get the information.
I just got told I got to be back at the mic. Um, so, we tried everything that we could to ensure that people had enough access from a number of different ways, with the copies at the band office, with a phone number, with an email address, with letters going out, with flyers being put into mailboxes, to make sure that everybody had access and they had opportunity to participate. If all of those failed, then I'm sorry they did. So
virtual town halls, maybe just call a community meeting and say, together and say, why don't we as a community decide how that survey should be put together before it even goes out to these non-natives or, non-reserved people. But we were the ones who stood up and fought for it.
yeah.
And including chief and council at the time. And we're the ones who have that investment in it. And I guess, when you say that you provide some options for people, well, who wouldn't say, send me a check? Who wouldn't say that? I mean, times are tough out there and shit's expensive and rent's expensive. Why wouldn't people say, send me a check? But when you're talking about the priorities being housing and people having a hard time and people wanting to get back, well, we're concerned about getting the rest of the culverts and track back. Not just saying, let's write it off and take this. If we have $30 million, that would break down into 82 homes that we could buy on the culverts and track that could be rented out or sold to people so that they would have first-time homes or have affordable rental accommodations. And when it came to work, that would be people who could maintain those houses, fix them up, renovate them, and provide decent, safe, healthy housing to people who are in need of it. So to turn around and say, let's give $2,000 to everybody, that doesn't do shit for everybody. And that doesn't give us a future. So when you're talking about conducting your consultation, a lot of the answers that you get from consultation is based upon the questions that you ask. And so if you have the questions and then you say come and meet with us and discuss this, well, you've already formed the outcome. And not to be dismissive of the process, but we held 5 or 6 community meetings, 7 community meetings before we went down there and took the culverts and trash land back. And land is expensive on the reserve, and people are entitled to it. The band doesn't have a process for selling land to people. So when I guess my concern is that if we have $31 million, people say housing's important. Why piss it away?
Okay. Well, Sean, that's we did talk. I guess internally, we did talk about the process and how we could access as many people as we as possible. perhaps we overlooked having community meetings such as this one. And I guess in hindsight, we could have, we should have. But again, we felt that that the people would have, and people would be more open to having discussions in a smaller group. And that's why we went with the focus groups, and then set out a number of times, 9 different times where people could come and talk. And then also, again, I said the email, the phone number where people could express expressive views. With your issue with respect to the use of the money for housing and how to use it, I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing that we did here in the focus groups, and that's why we were reporting that housing was a priority. How it's going to be done is sort of a further thing, whether it's going to be all rental. And what we're saying, because of the information that we did hear, that mixed use, make some land available, build some apartments, build some houses for rent, and sort of address everything that people were talking about. And that's essentially what you were just saying. Use the money for housing.
Obtaining back our land that's rightfully ours, that's being occupied by non-natives in the town, and actually serve multi-purposes when it comes to this. I mean, I could say, why didn't you go down and consult with the people on the Culbertson land and say, how many of you are willing sellers? Because if you say that you bought the Kimmett land because the guy was a willing seller, he wasn't a willing seller, he sued the man. And part of the settlement for Kimmett was to give him the money in order to satisfy him.
Yeah.
And take away that pressure off the provincial government or the federal government. That's why we settled. He was a willing seller because we went on his land, seized his equipment, and booted his ass off. That's why he became a willing seller, because he couldn't go back on his own land again. And so maybe within the rest of the homes that exist from the Deserona boundary to the east side of Mill Street, maybe there's people in there that are willing sellers. So I guess my concern is why we're talking about this as though it's the conclusion of this settlement of the culvert. When in fact what we should be doing is talking about how we obtain the rest of the lands that's rightfully ours from these people who are squatting on our land.
Well, and
I know the chief, I know because we went through this process back in the church of
right,
Shannonville,
right.
when we actually obtained lands back up there on a willing seller, willing buyer relationship. And I know the chief says we don't buy our own land, but in some circumstances, when we're talking about the situation down there, we should be looking at that. And if we have those monies and it provides us with an avenue, then we can invest in that. We could buy 82 homes on the Culbertson tract. Of those 82 homes, then we could use those homes as equity to mortgage and finance the purchase of another 328 homes, which would essentially be the purchasing back of the whole of the Culbertson tract with the $32 million and providing our people with housing, which should be ultimately the goal. I want to say one more thing before, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But I got this because I bought a piece of the Culbertson tract, and there's a guy in here who is bringing forward to put 1,200 units on a piece of land on the Culbertson tract. So this is going to Hastings County for approval. Next week, they're having a meeting on it, a hearing. And so lands in behind, south of that portion that you're talking about, are going to be occupied with like 1,200 units or 1,200 families of people that are living. So while we're talking about building a house or two, these people are planning on putting up 1,200 more people on our land. And how are we going to get that back then? Or do we have to go down and squat on it like we did this piece of land and fight for it? Is that what we're going to have to do? Like I hear about, everybody talking about this. Well, what about this? This is the same land, the Culbertson tract lands. This is the development that's going in behind Denny Tompkins. just south of this land.
The,
So it
sh-
seems a little disingenuous and
y-
inconsistent. This is the end of the Culbertson deal. This is the end of the settlement. We're going to get this. We're going to get $30 million, and essentially we're going to give up the rest. We're going to acquiesce the rest back to the town. We're going to acquiesce our rights, maybe not our legal rights, but we're going to acquiesce our negotiating rights back in order to get the 31 million. No, I didn't believe it, because I believe that after fighting for that and people going to jail for that and being denied bail and sitting their asses in jail for months and months and months, that it meant something to this community, that our intention was to get the land back that was rightfully ours. So $31 million isn't going to do somebody in Toronto or Syracuse or Ottawa or Hamilton, wherever the hell else you were outreaching to, Nova Scotia, BC. It isn't going to do them a damn bit of good. It's not going to do us a damn bit of good. Giving them a couple $1,000 to sit their ass out there when they have no intention of ever coming back to the community or ever supporting the community or ever fighting for anything that this community stands for.
Sean, only,
Let's do something about this, Chief. Let's stop this.
only,
Let's stop this. Let's stop this housing development.
Sean, just one question before, one response before the chief answers. One of the things that we were careful of, and I go back to one of my very first statements, we are reporting on what we heard, and in the survey and in the groups that were in that we opened up. One of the things that we also made sure that was in every document that we put out, that, as I said, the partial settlement, and it is only partial. If there was discussion going on or people saying they're signing away all of the Culbertson, that's not true. This is a partial settlement only, and that was very clear, and that was put in there as a and here where we say negotiations were entered into a portion of the land without prejudice against the remaining acreage. So that the claims on that additional acreage, the 600 and some odd acres, is still there. And then I'm not sure. I'm just using information from community information that there are other claims in the process. So, but the point that I want to make is that we were clear. We wanted to make sure that what we were saying, this is partial. This is only partial. Okay. So, Chief, you had your hand up.
Yes, Dan, the government wrote us a letter asking the council, the government wrote us a letter asking the council to.
I drove here from my house because this experience is so frustrating at home, because we can only hear him, we can't hear anybody else, and it feels super disrespectful. So it would be nice if the people at home could actually hear what was going on here in the meeting, especially if it's supposed to be an open, welcome, community consultation, sharing information with the community members. You don't see anybody saying anything. We see him, and then as soon as he moves off site, you can't hear anything at home. Anything that's being said over here, you can't hear any of that. Like, it's ridiculous. I drove all the way here because I was so frustrated with even the process. And the idea that this person is the one that's collecting information and sharing it effectively with community members, this is a joke. He can't even relay the information effectively.
Come this side. Come this side. Come this side.
To clarify some issues that have been raised today, A number of years ago, when the Dyes property was for sale, there's 180 acres of land. Chief Earl Hill and our council went out and bought that land while it was for sale. And we asked Ron Irwin, who came with the Minister of Indian Affairs, to reimburse us for that land. It was, we thought, so taken from us illegally with that clay company that was there at the time in the early 1900s. So we bought that land from David Dyes for a little over about $400,000 with a bank loan. The rent from the two buildings that were there helped pay that bank loan. So by the time Ron Irwin, when he said, "Look, Chief, I don't want to fight with you. If we've done something wrong, well, what do we need to do to make it right?" And he said, "Well, he can start by reimburse us what we paid for the land, and the loss of use we'll deal with later through some studies." So he said, "Chief, I'll do that." So he paid all but $10,000 of the legal fees to reimburse the band. That's how that was done. With the Turton Pen model, the protest had went on at the Oka crisis, as it was called. And Chief Earl, I was working in Ottawa, he asked me to come home because he was having a meeting with the government the next day, Shirley Mason, the Associate Minister of Indian Affairs. I came home and went to his cottage. I said, "Look, the people don't, there was two surrender votes back in the 1990s, and it was defeated by 9 votes to surrender Shannonville. The Turton Pen land was defeated." I said, "So that gives an indication that the people want the land returned to our control." So we wrote out a simple thing on a paper. The government would buy the land, return it to the Mohawks, the Bay of Quinte, in an environmentally safe condition, and they would pay a loss of use compensation later on. So over 17 years, on a willing seller, willing buyer, Vic Leonard from Public Works Canada and later Bob Brandt went out and negotiated with the people, the Turton Pen leaseholders, to lease that land there, to buy out their leases. They were paid well, and they moved on, and the land was, any environmental work that had to be done was undertaken at the expense of the government, and it was cleaned up, and the houses could be sold. We we put into place a community committee that would decide how much those houses would be sold for, and that the process went on, and people took out mortgage to buy those houses and paid the band. That was one model. It was called the Turton Pen model. When we went to the negotiation table, we asked the government to do the same as they had done in Shannonville, to use the Turton Pen model. They said we would never do that again. The reason, because houses had been taken over, it created legal issues. There were houses that had asbestos and hazardous issues there. They didn't want to be exposed to the liability. So they said they wouldn't do that. When we had a community meeting here, Alan Pratt, our lawyer, came, and I suggested that we should buy the land when it's for sale, because we might lose opportunity to buy it later. The people said we shouldn't have to buy land that we didn't surrender. So that's why we didn't buy the land. With regard to the issue with the quarry, a member did come to see me about opening up a quarry on the land, and I said there would have to be extensive council approval and extensive community consultation, because we had promised the community that we would consult with them on that land. And so and the request was about with the not getting a report. I asked the staff person to give them a copy of the report. There were copies of that report on the front desk at reception. And so I personally think and agree that we should buy the land when it's for sale, because people are not going to wait years and years and years for the federal government to make a decision, and then go after the federal government to reimburse us for the land. The money could be used to do that if the people consent to it. There's a lot of poverty in our community, and I can see why people would ask for the money. There's about 40% of the people that live in the community and off reserve are severely marginalized. So it really is up to the people to decide. We said we would take our instructions from the people on what to do with that land and that money. The government has also asked our council, the past council, to submit a letter asking, what do you want to do to settle the rest of the land? So the council still has to meet with the band's lawyer about that. I put forward my ideas to Lisa, what I thought how we should be doing to settle that land. There was never a time that we ever agreed to give up anything. And we said we will accept a settlement agree, a partial settlement agreement, settle what we can as it's available for sale. Theodore Nyberg wanted to sell his land at the same time when he was the owner of the land that Sean's family has purchased. And I asked the government, would they consider buying the Nyberg property as well as the Kimmett land because it was for sale, and they said no. We'll just settle one piece at a time, and then they said no to Nyberg. They thought he wanted too much money for it. So all of these, what we want has to be put pen to paper and give the government a letter and meet with them to make it happen. And I've kept telling the council, this one in the past one, time is of essence. Because while the Trudeau government is there, I think we have a better chance of getting what we were looking for. If we wait for Poilievre to come to office, who knows what his policy is going to be on settling anything concerning Native people. So we need to get on with that. The same thing with the Turton Pen. There's room there to ask for loss of use compensation from I would go back to 1824 to whenever these purchases were made by Public Works and Government Services. So we have to, I've given Lisa my ideas on what we should do. The council has yet to set a meeting date. It's been discussed at council. They need to meet. The lawyer's written several emails about needing a meeting date, and so in April we hope to have a meeting date with the lawyer on those issues. Sean?
So my question is, if Dan has here that his recommendation to council is to give money back to the people, and then to invest the rest so that they can get more money in the future.
Sean, sorry, could you come up to the mic?
The people can't hear. You'll have to be careful not to trip over the wires here.
Sorry.
No, you stay here, because I'd like to know your answer to this. So my question is that if you're talking about utilizing money as the purchase for homes on the Culbertson tract, in fact, $30 million can purchase 82 homes outright. Those homes then can be refinanced to the bank and partially mortgaged to buy another 328 homes, which would essentially buy almost all the homes within the Culbertson tract. That would allow housing to come back to the majority of the people that you're talking about, the 40% within our community and off who are impoverished. Doesn't that make sound as a better use of the monies, the $30 million, rather than distributing $2,000 checks to everyone across the board? And my second question is that when Dan has in his consultation that we've paid him to do, his recommendations is to send checks to every band member. What is council's position when you're saying we're going to take the direction of the community, we're going to take the direction of the people who've been consulted, and are you going to go against that? Are you going to use this as a talking point, or are you going to use this as being the will of the people? Because I don't think this is the will of the people. Because when it comes to consultations, it isn't about having virtual town halls. It's about having meetings here. There's more people here than attended your 3 virtual town halls. This is where ideas come from, through discussion in the community. And I look around the people that I know that went to jail, who stood on the lines, who fought for that piece of land, who don't deserve more of a voice, but they do deserve consideration. And people who spend a significant amount of their time in jail in order to facilitate this. And I'm speaking for you yourself, because you were in favor of people going down there and standing on the lines and fighting for the land back. I know you were, and so was the council at the time, because we met. So I'm going to give you that credit. But now's the time to not say, let's piss it away. Now's the time to say, let's if people want housing, then let's give them housing. Let's use the money let's buy the housing. Let's get the squatters off our land, and let's see the full return of the Culbertson back to our community. We've been denied for over 200 years, and it's time for our people to walk on our own land again.
So first of all, I cannot ignore the will of the people when we ask them. When we signed that settlement agreement and told them what it was, we said, we will consult with you. I cannot go to the people and consult with them and always say, well, what you said doesn't matter. And neither can the council. The council came today to listen to what was said. And I think it may even have to take a vote of the people to approve whatever the council decides to put forward in their interpretation of this report. I would want to make sure, if we're buying a house, that we're not going to be paying a big dollar on something that we're going to have to tear down because it's going to cost us more money to bring it into proper standards, because those houses in Desron, quite a few of them are pretty old. I don't know the condition of those houses. I've never been in them. I've never been in those. Can I finish, please? I've never been in those houses. So it would be foolish to buy a house if you don't know what the condition of it is. Maybe some of them are good.
So we should probably respect those people and move through the agenda items.
Have you finished with your agenda, Dan? Dan has said he's finished with the agenda. There's another meeting tomorrow at 2 to 4. There may have to be other consultation meetings. And the other issue that we were working with last year is there was COVID outbreaks, and they were encouraged people not to gather. So that was taken into consideration with using this survey approach. There were public health considerations. So that was part of the reason why there weren't more community meetings than because of the COVID conditions at the time. It's a repeat of this for those who haven't had a chance to, and maybe more dialogue is necessary. No, I've got no objection to that. But the council does have to put forward a plan. To show you the wait list for housing, there's 143 families on our reserve that are on wait, that have applied to have housing on the reserve. There's 3,409 people on the housing wait list for Hastings County, and the wait list there is 10 years or more. And so there isn't housing available in the community or in the surrounding communities. There's just big, long wait lists everywhere in Canada. So So, with the quarry, what I told the gentleman was that, the people didn't want to see at the time, they didn't want to see the reserve being carted away in truckloads, was what was the voice of that time. There are two other quarries that have operated in the reserve only to have constant protests from a number of people in the community, neighbors. And so whether or not there's going to be quarries in the community, I think that would require a vote as well. Because it's created a lot of legal turmoil and expense for the band, these quarries. Some wells have went dry, and they blamed it on the quarries. So the council will have to take the direction from the people, because that's what we said we'd do. And that's not one or two voices. That's what even the people who don't stand up, have an opinion, voice their opinion, have an opinion. Well, you can put forth your ideas. The council will be here to listen to what people have to say. That's what they're here for. So in case people don't know the council, would the councillor stand up and I'll introduce you. So Councillor Chris Miracle is here. Come up here so they can see you. So present tonight is Councillor Chris Miracle. You just want to wave so they can see you. Councillor Linda Lewin. Want to wave so they can see you? Okay. Councillor Ogwari Brandt and Councillor Chip Brandt is here. And Councillor Aaron Ferranti is here as well.
Just didn't want to stand
Okay,
in front of the
Councillor
light.
Aaron Ferranti, do you want to wave so they can see you? Okay.
Because that light's hard on.
Who's missing here? Who's the sixth one? Who's not here?
Chris, Hockey, Brant.
Okay, and Councillor Chris Brandt is not here tonight, but he's.
Oh, it was just that light, hard on the eyeball.
So,
Oh, that's better.
does the councillor do what? Would you? They're asking pretty much what direction that you're going to take. Do you need time to discuss it? And
If they want more consultation, let's give them more consultation.
yeah.
Just for all the internet people.
And Dan is the consultant. When he asks the people for their ideas, he has to listen to what they had to say. And he wasn't there hired to steer them in any particular direction. He was there to go to them to see what their ideas were. So it was genuine consultation. It was to manipulate, not to push anybody in one direction or the other, but to see what their opinion was. That's what he was, and that's what he did. And he provided options. But from my interpretation of the report, there seemed to be consensus for some kind of partial distribution, and housing and agriculture seemed to be way in there, and maybe some light businesses along that road. That's the interpretation I got. And of course, we understand that from Dan, when surveys are done, usually you don't ever get 100%. And what was the percentage of the people that responded? 12%? About 12% of the people have responded, and I guess for surveys, that's a good turnout. So, well, I guess in general, the surveys that are done anywhere in Canada, if you get 12%, that's a pretty high turnout for any survey. So there's a lot of infrastructure needed. When you build the houses, they'll last if you maintain them. And if you're charging low rent, the roofs will always leak within so many years. The furnace will break down. The plumbing will need repairs. The windows will wear out and you'll have to replace them. You got to put some money aside too for future repairs, because the houses will last only if they're kept in good repair. So that has to be factored. You can't just build the house and say, here's some cheap rent. Because at the end of the day, the cheap rent may not cover the cost of future repairs, and that becomes another burden. Where does the band get the money to do that? So, so anyway, this is the council. The council will discuss what they've heard tonight, and I guess they'll discuss that they would like more meetings, but I can't speak ahead of council or the people, and so it will need further discussion in our council. Okay.
You want introductions from everybody?
Introductions? Go ahead, Arbori.
Yeah, the people who live blurred, but there's a lot of people that have never signed off. Like I was literally sitting at home with 3 other people that have never been involved in a relationship. So do your thing.
Blurb on my thoughts on the Culbertson, or?
No, just like my name is.
Oh. Gotcha. So I'm Macquarie Brandt. I've got 4 kids in this community. I've got a wife. This is my first term as on council, and honestly I like Sean's idea about buying up those extra houses in Deserano.
Hello, I'm Linda Lewin. I've lived in this community
for 63 years. And I'm proud to tell how old I am. And I've done a lot for this community, and I still do a lot for this community. So if this community is saying to me that you want more consultation, then that's what you'll get.
Hi, my name is Curtis Brandt. As aware, one of the new counselors. Sean, very good ideas. Very good ideas. That's why we're here, to listen to you people. That's what we want to do. So, well, yeah, good. But anyways, thank you.
So there you go. My name is Chris Miracle. I hold a housing portfolio. I've spent the better part of my life pursuing First Nation housing initiatives. We have to listen, obviously, and I've had some ideas regarding a master plan for that area and with a focus on housing. Sean raised some good points, but I got to go back now and do some analysis and number crunching, pros and cons, etc. And I'll come right out. I agree. $1,000 here. I know some people are hurting, but 1,000 there, 1,000 there doesn't really do a lot. I'm taking a 7 generations approach with the focus on housing. I have to look at the bigger picture. I have to look at current debt loads of the community that based upon decisions past councils have made, because we've got a lot of debt, a lot of investments already out there. We met with our financial advisors just the other day, and I said, overall, what are our return on our investments? And we're averaging, 3% return on our investments, 3%. Yet, when we mortgage our money, lend our money back to our people, which is your money, we get 6%. And when money's sitting in a bank somewhere, it's doing nothing for our contractors, nothing for the community well-being. So I promise you, if I have any say, it's going to be a focus upon housing, whether it's all housing in that area. Again, I got to crunch some numbers from what Sean is saying, putting forward. We already have a lot of land sitting idle that could be used for agriculture. The council's already set aside land that Seed Sanctuary has been using. There's no reason why there couldn't have been food sovereignty could have been going on there already. So I don't know why we have to all of a sudden put 200 acres aside for food sovereignty when we already have a lot of land sitting idle as we speak. So again, I'm going to listen, but I have some strong ideas on this. But I'm going to listen and analyze what I'm hearing, and I will be perfectly honest when I come back up here to say, yeah, I might disagree with what the consensus is. If the consensus is give it away, I'm not going to support that. I'm sorry, but that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't know where to look. Look at you guys. Look at the camera. I'm Erin Ferrante. I am a newly elected councillor this year, so this is my first term. This Culbertson survey is something that we kind of got grandfathered this, so this came to us. I think we can't disregard what our membership has said in this survey, but I also think that it's very apparent that we need more consultation, and it can't end here. That maybe this is the start. I'm not sure how it was introduced 100%, but it's very clear. Like, this is very obvious that people care, that you've come out in a snowstorm to hear us and hear what information was being given to you, and also to share your concerns and what you guys feel maybe is being missed in this survey. And I think that's super important. And if we can get back to this where we see each other and we are able to talk to each other and communicate and express our needs and what the community needs and what you think is valuable for the community, I think that's the most important. So if this is where we start and we move forward, then I think this is a good thing and a good place to start. I don't think that this should settle anything in stone and say, yep, this is it, this is what we're doing. But I think it's a place to start to see where we can go. Open to hear everything.
So something to think about is that when Canada signed this, agreed to sign this settlement, partial settlement, without prejudice to the other negotiations that have yet to take place, Canada required 25% of the membership plus one of the voting age to agree to it. And I can tell you, I had to make 700 phone calls to band members to at least encourage them to participate in the vote. I didn't tell them how to vote. just that participation in the vote was important. And if we don't get 25% plus one to vote in future settlements, like the Turton Pen settlement, future settlements on the, it won't fly. And so that's an important consideration. So the lawyers counsel us that what they're seeing in settlements elsewhere is that the members were looking for some kind of distribution of at least some of the money. So there will be future votes on settlement agreements. And if we can't achieve 25% plus one, it'll go nowhere. Nothing will get settled. Canada won't sign any settlement agreements without 25% plus one. That's their policy. And so it was difficult to get the 25% plus one in this vote. And if the council doesn't listen to at least some of the accommodate what some of the people said, good luck in getting them to participate in future votes. And probably nothing would ever get settled in the future with our claims. That's something else to think about. So, well, I agree that, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 a month doesn't accomplish much in this day and age. But if that's what the people said, I think we have to listen to that. Some of it, anyway. We need to address the housing and the infrastructure, because right now, if you put hydro in, guess what? The government doesn't pay for that. That becomes a community infrastructure project. The money's got to come from somewhere. Our hydro lines were built in the 1950s and 1960s. There's been tremendous growth that's happened since then. Those power lines need to be upgraded to meet the needs of the present development in the community. So that money has to come from somewhere. There can be a share in the water and sewer extensions. The town of Deserano we've capitalized the Deserano, optimized the Deserano water treatment plant, as well as expanded the sewage capacity there, so we have additional 600 units of that we can use for our reserve development. The council will be having a discussion with the town on the 27th of March at 4:30 to discuss these issues with the town and the development proposed on North Street there. So there's a lot of pressures on capital, and so that's something that the council is going to have to take into consideration. But I think it would be, and I can tell you when the protest took place, Jim Prentice called me up and he said, "Chief, we can't negotiate anything in a climate of hostility." So he said, when things settle down in the future, then we can discuss what you're asking us to do, which was buy the land, pay us compensation for the time that we couldn't use it. And so then Vivian Berkovich, the 1 year, on the year anniversary of the apology for the residential school settlement, she came to our negotiation committee. And the only thing that she had, Chuck Strahl had become the minister then, and she said, the only thing I come here to talk to you about was a surrender of that land. I said, we have no mandate at all, ever, to extinguish any rights or surrender any of our land, and we're not going to have that conversation. I don't support it, and we have no mandate to engage in that kind of conversation. So I said, if that's all you have to offer, then we have nothing to discuss. Chuck Strahl went on the Belleville radio and totally misrepresented what we were discussing about the options. The land court was called to have a company buy the land back, because the people said that you shouldn't have to buy our land that we never surrendered. So we listened to the people. I wanted to buy the land back when it was for sale, because by then we could be assured of getting it back. But that wasn't popular at that time. And so that I think, but we need a quick process, though, and usually the government, an appraiser would have to come to appraise the land. I would say if you're going to buy houses that are already there, I would want an inspection to make sure there isn't asbestos, that there isn't, mold, that the wiring is up to code. If we get in a lot of whole things that don't meet the building code, we're looking at a whole lot of renovation costs just to make those houses safe for people to live in. And there is liability for the condition of houses that you rent. You have to disclose the deficiencies when you sell it to somebody else, or they can come back and sue you. So there's a lot to think about in this. And so I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Yes, ma'am?
When I had to yeah. It took you 18 months to come and see my home. Did you really expect me to grow with the mold? And you backed me up on that. But you know what? I don't think we need to be throwing more money away to other organizations that won't look after us if we're ready to look after us first. Our homes are important. The homes that you want to build for people are important, but responsibility has to be there. And I really think that the reserve could have a few more departments opening up.
Yeah. Now, one of the issues through, you can get better financing if you're going to build houses through CMHC. But one of the things that's lacking is the CMHC wants security for those loans, and the security is a ministerial loan guarantee. And right now, they do not have authority at the department to have big projects like apartment buildings and larger projects. So the minister doesn't have authority for ministerial loan guarantees. So that's one thing that I'm pushing the department to modernize their authorities to build what the community needs to build as determined by the community. And so right now there's been, the housing money has not all been spent according to the Auditor General's report. And so I'm asking for some accountability there. When there's such a drastic unmet need, why is their money still there and not being spent? So there's a big challenge with the area of housing and meeting the needs of a growing population and community, and to address the poverty that's also part of that picture. Thank you. So Dan, do you have any wrap-up comments?
I just want to say one thing. In the spirit of the Culbertson Tract, and I agree with your comments about not surrendering land, and we're one of the few communities that don't surrender their land, that don't take money for their land. On Monday, at March 25th, 2024 at 10 a.m., there's a virtual go-to meeting being held as a case management conference, video conference, for the building of 246 residential housing units on the Culbertson Tract. They're seeking approval from the County of Hastings on Monday, this Monday, at 10 a.m. for 246 units on the Culbertson Tract, which is just south of this tract. So when we're talking about not surrendering our land, allowing 246 units to be built on our land is essentially surrendering our land to 246 more squatters that we're going to have to try and boot out at some time. So for Chief and Council that are here, I got this because I own the land adjacent to this development, and they have a legal responsibility to send me this notice, because there hasn't been a notice put out in the newsletter that there's 246 units going to be built on the Culbertson Tract, and this is something that we have to stop. And we're not going to go back to the same rules of 2007 and go out and have to squat on our land and build fires and live in friggin' makeshift shelters to stop these people from building 246 more units on our land. So if we're talking about getting it back, let's stop it from being built. Call upon your Chief and Council to attend this virtual meeting Monday at 10 a.m. Case management to stop 246 units from being built on our land. And I'm happy. Anybody else? One of these Indians living across the country that doesn't participate or doesn't give a shit but wants their check, you can attend by accessing this. This is the access code. Go on there, tell these bastards that we're not giving up our land for 246 more units.
Okay. Sean, I doubt very much that Hastings County is going to approve that. We were given notice, and the council did approve a letter to go to the town of Deseronto and the Hastings County Planning Department. Just let me okay. So the county has been put on notice. So has the town of Deseronto, that is in unresolved land claim area, and that the ban was opposed to the development. We are on record with both governments opposing any development on that land because the claim is not settled. I will go to the meeting on.
Machines from going and developing and doing the work?
I will ask my council to come with me, and we will go to Hastings County and ask if we can speak there. I will ask the council to come with me to the meeting on Monday, but we have already put the county on notice that that is unsurrendered land and that the ban is imposed to any development on that, and that it's unsettled. Well, I'm inviting the council to come. I'm not saying whoever can come, it's important, and I'm asking the council to come. We responded to the county. We said we're opposed to the development. We're on, the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte are on record by letter to the county opposing that land. Shelley, can you look up the motion? Okay, but there is a motion of council, and the letter has been, I've signed that letter, and it's gone out.
But this is the big process, right? Communication. We're all talking about lack of transparency. We're all talking about, we have issues with the way the band does processes, period. Now we're talking about extra money. We're seeing the stuff you're doing with the stuff we already have, and none of us are happy. And our answer is, move off.
Well, what we're doing, but we are asking the people, we promised the people we would ask them, what do you want done with the land and the money? And that's what this process is about. We hired a consultant to do the study, because we done it.
We want a commitment to know that, okay, you're going to send the letter. Cool. You're going to let all the community members know. Hey, this was sent. This is set up. This is what we're going to do about it. Because we want to be transparent and we want to have a good working relationship.
The minute.
Statement is more than just a bullshit sign.
The minutes of the decisions that the council makes are posted in the newsletter. The newsletter is published on our website and in the newsletter. It does go out in those boxes for people to pick up. So there is communication. People just have to avail themselves to pick up a copy and read it. It's in there. It's on our website. And I can tell from the input here that there is a lot of people who do not look at our website. And I've encouraged the council to put out something on paper form and deliver it through the mail so that people will read it, because there's a lot of people who do not read our website. It's obvious with the kinds of responses you get here. Okay. Okay, but I'm just saying that there is information that goes out. Maybe it does need to be oral as well. Can we use good language, please?
People can't hear you.
But there are people here that do care, and I would out of respect for people that do care, would you not use foul language?
Yeah, but you're really talking about respect and then doing all of this stuff that you should tell me about respect.
Yeah.
And I'm expected to tell you disrespect.
Yeah. I just asked you, I just said using foul language is offensive to some of the people here. And we accept your apology. Thank you so much.
There is another meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock. But again, I'll reiterate, I'm sorry, my job was to report on what we heard through the processes that I outlined that we went through. And and that's what the session was for this evening, is to report on that. Obviously, there are a lot more issues that should come up at community meetings, and that would be sort of another topic. So until tomorrow at 2 o'clock, everybody's welcome to come, and we shall see you then.